Hannah was always a very happy person, one of those sort of children with a ready smile. And she's just, you know, that expression people say about flourishing into a young woman, that was what we were witnessing.
Today's case takes us back in time to the 80s, to the era of shoulder pads, wacky wild hairstyles, such as the mallet, the mohawk, flat tops, dodgy clothing, ghetto blasters, Rubik's Cubes, and these, and this, and this, and those, and these people. Trevor and Hilary Foster, a couple in love, responsible for the birth of Hannah and their younger daughter Sarah. Hannah Foster, she was born on the 31st of August in the year of 1985. Hannah was raised in Southampton in England and lived with both of her parents and her younger sister Sarah. Both girls did well at school, navigating their way through their education and easily achieving those all-important high grades. Hannah was smart, she was pretty and confident and made friends with others with no qualms. She was a social butterfly. She knew what she wanted out of life and, more importantly, she knew how to get it, always aiming for a placement at university to become a doctor. She would often be described by her friends and teachers as a special and gifted young lady and student. And as you all know by now, if this case is being covered on this channel, a promising future can soon turn to mould. And in this case, it's as damp as it gets, leaving the Foster family emotionally broken, cold and desperate. On the 14th of March in the year of 2003, Hannah and her friends agreed on a night out in the city of Southampton. And so they hit the bars, had a couple of drinks, wrecked the dance floor, a few more drinks and great conversation, ending their night at a cute bar called The Hobbit. The night went off without a hitch and the vibe between them all was great. However, by the time 10:30 in the evening came around, the group called it a night as it was starting to get late, and so they all said their farewells and they made their ways back home, leaving both Hannah and her friend Helen to set off home on foot. Both girls were captured on CCTV at around 10:45, walking along the high street. Hannah walked her friend Helen to the bus stop and then she waited with her friend until Helen boarded the bus. And then, given the fact that Hannah only lived just a short walk away, she continued her walk back home. Fast forward just 6 hours or so, and the time is now approaching 5 AM. And with no sign of Hannah anywhere to be seen, her deeply worried parents back at home began sending text messages and ringing her mobile phone. But no dice. There was no response to the text messages sent, and Hannah wasn't answering her phone. And even more concerning, Hannah would never not answer her phone. And she definitely would never stay out all night without telling anybody first. And so by the mid-morning, at around 10:30 AM, Trevor rang the police to report his daughter as missing. The police now have an accurate description of Hannah and a full character statement given by her father. The police moved swiftly and quickly by tracking her phone's GPS. Luckily, Hannah's phone was still emitting the signal, pinging from several different cell phone towers in different locations. And by tracking the live data, the police were now hot on the mysterious trail, slowly piecing together where she had been and where she could be. Detectives working the case, the same detectives that were reading the data from the cell phone towers, also uncovered something quite disturbing. Yeah, they discovered that Hannah had made a 999 emergency phone call just moments before she was last seen alive. The call actually did connect to the emergency services, however, it was thought to have been a prank phone call and then passed over to the silent holding queue as the operator heard no response. The call was then ended with no follow-up and no callback. Although when investigators took a much closer look into the phone call, data evidence strongly suggests that the caller was moving quite quickly, meaning if this was the case then Hannah was in a travelling vehicle. The police investigators were able to enhance the recorded call, and with a trained ear, it soon became clearly obvious that Hannah was in a much larger vehicle than a standard sized car, and whoever was in the vehicle with her was clearly older than her, male, with a South Asian accent, and whoever this man was, he could be heard telling Hannah to keep her head down.
But when it was analysed later by sound technicians, they could hear a man and a woman's voice in the background.
Emergency, which service? Hello, says the operator. You belong this country, says the man. Yeah, says Hannah. England, says the man. Yeah, I'm English, says Hannah. Yeah. Home, Farrington, says Hannah. The operator tries again.
Police think this was Hannah trying to call for help without her attacker realising.
So yeah, this solid evidence was more than enough to suggest to the police that they were dealing with a kidnapping of some sort, or worse still, a potential murder, whilst at the same time, the police doubled down on all efforts tracking Hannah's mobile phone signal, and according to the cell tower's transmission, Hannah was now somewhere in between Portsmouth and Southampton. Strange though, because in the early hours of Saturday morning on the 15th of March, Hannah's phone signal was now stationary in an unknown location somewhere in the Portsmouth area. And guys, it was around this time the police and loved ones would now start to fear the worst case scenario. Just a quick reminder, guys, if you're enjoying this kind of content, then please hit the bell and subscribe to the channel. We upload every single week covering the most gruesome and horrific, horrifying true crime stories. And by hitting the like button, it helps the channel grow to a wider audience. So please, hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you. And sadly, they would be right to do so, because just 24 hours later, the foster family's worst nightmare would soon become a painful reality. Hannah's dead body was discovered dumped in some bushes on Allington Lane, on the outskirts of Southampton. She'd been raped and strangled. The criminal investigators at the scene, they also found her clothing done behind some bushes, less than 7 meters away from her body. The clothing contained heavy traces of blood and semen, to which both samples were then put through the National DNA database. And just a short while later, the results came back with a 0% match. And get this, because just the following day after the body was discovered, all efforts tracking Hannah's mobile phone signal led police to another crucial discovery, this time around at the recycling plant in Portsmouth. The police found Hannah's bag, along with her mobile phone. Both items were then taken to the Criminal Investigations Office for testing, tagging and bagging. The serious manhunt was now fully on to find this mysterious and dangerous man. And by using the motorway CCTV along with cell phone tower data and analysing hundreds of hours of footage, the police determined that Hannah's abductor would be linked to one of 7 vans. This case was also featured on the BBC television programme Crime Watch, telling the British public to phone in with any information in connection with this case. And now with the net closing in on the killer, and now with the case picking up momentum, a local man would soon ring in and give the police the name of a suspect. The suspect in question was one of the 7 the police were already closely looking at. That shady character was 41-year-old Maninder Pal Singh Kohli. He was an Indian immigrant who was living in Southampton. He was a married man with 2 beautiful children who worked full-time at the Hazelwood Food Factory as a sandwich and food delivery driver. The tip-off caller was a supervisor at the Hazelwood Food Factory. He told the police that Kohli's delivery route was consistent with the same area in question as shown on Crime Watch, and that the day after Hannah went missing, Kohli came back to work late with scratches on his face. The police, now armed with this tip-off's information, decided to run a quick background check on Kohli. And yeah, they immediately linked his van from one of the 7 previously under investigation from the cell phone tower data and CCTV footage. Here on this CCTV video imagery, the mobile phone signal meets 2 connections near the M27 and the M275 in Hampshire. And look at that, what do you know? On the CCTV footage shows Kohli's van travelling down the same stretch of motorway at exactly the same time. More video footage shows him at the recycling centre at the same time Hannah's phone signal stopped moving. During the night, the police would locate and seize the van and conduct a series of forensic tests. And it wasn't too long before they found blood and semen in the back and on the driver's seat, matching that to the same found on Hannah's bag and clothing. And with all that being said and done, and with no time to waste, on the 18th of March, the police arrived at St. Kohli's address to arrest him under suspicion of abduction and murder. But upon forcing their way into the property, the house was completely empty inside. The rooms and hallways were bare, and everything had gone, including the furniture. Clearly, Kohli, realising that his time was numbered, he decided to leave the UK with a one-way ticket from Heathrow to Delhi. However, the police did find Kohli's wife a mile away from the family home. She was living in another property with the children after refusing to jump on a plane with him. Kohli's wife told the police that he'd flown out to see his dying mother and that she didn't know when he would be planning on returning back to the UK. But little did the police know at this time that this was just the beginning of a 5-year battle, the battle for justice for Hannah and the Foster family. The case then remained at a cold standstill for a long and painful 5 years. You see, the problem was the Indian police services were unable to make Hannah's case a priority, and the media coverage over there was very little to none. The police also had a strong concern that Kohli's immediate family might be hiding him somewhere and supporting him financially. But that theory quickly faded away when Kohli's own father told the media that if his son has committed these crimes, then he needs to man up and face the consequences, quickly assuring the media that he would never protect his son, especially if he's committed such heinous and awful crimes.
I say if he has committed crimes, then I will
More than a year and 4 months later, and still with no new movement within the case, Hannah's parents, Hilary and Trevor, with no choice, took matters into their own hands and made the 4,000-mile trip to Chandigarh in India to bring maximum awareness to Hannah's fate and to hunt down the murderer, Singh Kohli. Hilary and Trevor's heartfelt appeals would reach the ears and eyes and hearts and minds of over 1 billion people during their 10-day stay, even setting up a phone hotline for anyone with any information to come forwards on the whereabouts of Singh Kohli.
Try to understand how this extradition delay is compounding our distress. On that day back in March 2003, Hilary and I made a promise that we wouldn't rest until Hannah's killer was brought to justice.
Hannah's case now sat firmly in the public eye, with a huge reward of over 5 million rupees for anyone with information leading to the arrest of Maninder Pal Singh Kohli. And not before too long, the phone started to ring, with many people eager to get their hands on the dirty cash. Dirty cash, I want you, dirty... Just edit it. You mean you can't? Well, anyway, information started to flood through to the police, and that information turned out to be true. You see, whilst hiding out in India, the killer had formed a completely new, different identity, and he'd even married a new woman, despite that marriage being bigamous. This guy literally did everything he possibly could to blend in and, make out his past never existed. However, he soon realised that the game was up and that there was literally no other option and there was nowhere else to run. So he handed himself in and did a televised interview that was broadcasted on the 28th of July in 2005, to where Kohli confessed to the murder of Hannah Foster.
Coincidentally, my van was parked on the same road where she is walking. And I just picked my van and I came, on the other road, and I saw her again. Then I stopped my vehicle, and I abducted her. I was totally drunk that night. Mother is very ill in India. I want to go to see her as well. And she was not, agreed. And I just, strangled her, like just, the whole with that way, and put a hand on her mouth and killed her.
He said he'd been drinking heavily. That night he abducted Hannah Foster, and when he saw her walking down the street, he grabbed her and pulled her into his van. He then put her through a series of sexual motivated and horrific attacks. He then had no choice but to kill her, as Hannah wouldn't promise to not report him to the police. He was then arrested for the murder of Hannah Foster and was held within Delhi police custody for a further 3 years. He was then finally extradited and brought to the UK on the 28th of July in the year of 2007 with new claims. Yeah, he claimed that he was forced and beaten by Indian gangsters into admitting into the killing of Hannah Foster, all the while playing the English system and forcing the Foster family to sit through a painstaking court hearing. Unbelievably, stupid Maninder Pal Singh Kohli truly believed that this time around there was a possible chance that he could get away with murder. However, Kohli didn't want to understand that there was just this tiny little annoying problem, a tiny little problem called conclusive DNA evidence. DNA evidence that would typically prove that Maninder Pal Singh Kohli is a lying, dirty, filthy, rotten piece of scum that's filled up to the top with utter stinking bolognese trash. And that's not to mention the CCTV footage and data technology that clearly placed him at the scenes of the crime. The Circus Trial began on October in 2008 at the Winchester Crown Court, where Kohli the Clown pleaded not guilty for murder. However, once he was confronted with all of the evidence and hard, conclusive, undeniable evidence, he then would go on to change his statement again for a second plea by telling the courts he was forced into having sex with Hannah and forced into killing her because he was being controlled by English gangsters. Indian gangsters, English gangsters, everyone's a gangster these days, you know. What is it with this guy? Anyways, once the Crown Court had finished laughing at the circus clown, he was immediately handed a 24-year term with the minimum of 24 years to serve without parole. Maninder Pal Singh Kohli now spends all his time performing and acting out gangster stories on the smallest stage in the world, in a small confined prison cell, all by himself. All thanks to the tireless work of the police in both the UK and India, and for the incredible strength of the Foster family who fought long and hard for the justice of their beautiful daughter. Rest in peace, Hannah. And if you're a fan of true horror crime and creepy stories from the dark, including supernatural events, then we got you covered. We upload new and creepy and horrifying crime cases right here on this channel every single week. And if that sounds like the kind of thing that you'll enjoy, then subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. That way you'll never miss out on any of our amazing up and coming videos in the future. And with all that being said and done, please stay safe, look after yourself, and I'll see you again real soon, next time, when evil follows. Bye.